Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Huh? Just this tight, Shalei. It's worth learning look at the Torah for years, just for this tight in the pasuk.
I was always wondering why it doesn't say ve'im loi.
Ve'im loi, im ayin.
And I thought it's like
Im, yeah.
People were asking when they're in the Hoshet, how to get
Yeah. Yud Shvat, Rabbi Pinson, with Rabbi Pinson.
Yeah, asking like Lamaisa, how to,
Yeah.
you can't hazard Likutei Torah, you gotta have some
No, of course.
light degree to.
he says actually something much deeper.
Yeah.
So he is actually means that he grabs him like a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We learned yesterday, we finished the sugya of Kiddush, Havdalah, and then the four kaises of Pesach, of Yayin, the dinim of Haseba, and the eating out of Pesach. After Kiddush and Havdalah, he speaks about eating out of Pesach, Samach L'Mincha, and Dalit Kaisis and Haseba and so forth. It's known that now Arvei Pesachim goes off on a long tangent into one of the very difficult and enigmatic and strange and haunting sugyas of magic. The Zugais, known as the Zugais, where the Gemara starts exploring why would Chazal institute 4 cups of wine, which is an even number, when we have this tradition that doing things in even numbers, drinking 2 cups of wine, or drinking 4 cups of wine, or 6 cups of wine, or eating 2 eggs, or 2 pieces of bread, had all types of potential spiritual and physical hazards. So the Gemara says that Pesach is a protected night, and then from here goes into many blot, into these discussions of Kishuf and Zugas and so on and so forth. Until many blot later, only on Daf Kuf Yud Daled, does it get back to the next Mishnah on Pesach. So I do want to learn it with you. I'm not skipping you just to skip it, but because it's mamash a few days before Pesach, I thought that we should go to Kuf Yud Daled and do the next few blot till the end of Arvei Pesachim, because that deals mamash with the structure of the Seder, and it gives us an understanding of the whole Seder, what happens. And then Bli Neder, we'll come back to this sugya, because this is a few blot mamash of pretty heavy stuff. Strange, I mean, it's difficult stuff. It's not simple. It's certainly not simple. The Mefarshim all struggle with it. It's very, very mystical. It's very, very, heavy, loaded, as they say. So I would like to learn it, but I'm not skipping. I'm going to get back to it, but I just thought for this week, we have a few days. We're going to learn Gemara tomorrow and Sunday, so we could hopefully finish Arvei Pesachim with just a few blot. So turn to the Mishnah of Kuf Yud Daled. This is the next Mishnah. After a few blot, where there's also the piece about how you measure a revius, which gets into a whole other issue of how you measure a revius. That's also the beginning of that sugya, and then it goes into the zugas. So we have here the next Mishnah after the first Mishnah of Pesachim, which was about not eating Erev Pesach and everybody reclining, and even a poor man having 4 cups of wine. Comes the next Mishnah. Now the next Mishnah, Kuf Yud Daled Amud Aleph, is very significant, because from here on till the end of the Perek, the Mishnayos discuss the night of the Seder, how it works, what we do, why we do it, what are the ingredients of the night, what is the system and order of the night, and of course they start off with Kiddush. And just a little introduction to appreciate what's going to happen in the next few blot Gemara. The mitzvahs of the night of Pesach are different than any other night of the year because there are so many of them. There are mitzvahs aseh, for example, eating matzah and telling the story to your child. That's a biblical mitzvah aseh. There are mitzvahs derabanan, for example, eating maror today, reclining, drinking 4 cups of wine, making kiddush on a cup of wine. Right. There's also mitzvahs d'oraisa of all year, like benching after food, after the meal. There's the mitzvah of lechem mishnah. There's the mitzvah of washing your hands before. There's so many. You don't have any other night of the year that so many mitzvahs just come together. Mitzvahs asay min haTorah, mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, right? Mitzvahs that apply to all year and mitzvahs that apply only to Pesach, like drinking 4 cups of wine or saying the Haggadah, telling the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's just so many different mitzvahs, and there's many institutions that the rabbis made, and many minhagim. That's why they decided to make a seder. You know when you say in Yiddish, seder, let's make a seder. The word seder was they decided we have to make an order, because if not, chaos may reign. Okay. Even now, when they made a seder, it's often not so organized. But really, they took a night that's very, very loaded, that's very potentially all over the place, and they decided we're making a system. And I guess in many ways, it's a symbol for freedom. What's the definition of freedom? Freedom doesn't mean that there's no chaos in life. Freedom doesn't mean that there's not a lot on your plate. Freedom just means you know how to make a seder. You know how to organize your priorities. You know how to organize your life. You know how to focus on certain things and ignore certain things. You know what comes first and what comes second and what comes third. That's what seder means, right? A seder doesn't mean you don't have responsibilities, so everything is organized because you only have 3 things to do in a day. A seder means you have endless things on your to-do list, but in your mind you have the freedom and the mental space and the presence and the attentiveness and the maturity to be able to prioritize and say, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, this is number 15, and this is number 25. And you move on, and you go from thing to thing. So in many ways, it's a symbol for life as well. So that's why they made a seder. What do we mean a seder? An order that all the Jews should follow this order, and when they follow this order, they'll go through all the mitzvahs of the night. This is the function of this Mishnah till the end of Psachim. Basically, the Seder. And it's going to focus on 2 Zdarim. The Seder the way it was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, which had obviously some differences, and the Seder it is today. Then you had a Korban Pesach, you had a Korban Chagiga. 2 major features. Not major, the Korban Pesach was the central feature of the Seder, which we don't have today. And today we're lacking those 2 things, and we have other things that were added today in lieu of the things that we had during the Beis HaMikdash. So that's going to be the 2 Zdarim we're going to be discussing as well. Okay. Introduction number 2. Generally, the Seder is comprised of 4 parts. Generally, 4 cups, represented by the intervals of the 4 cups of wine. Each cup of wine is like the summation. It's the end zone. You touch the end zone of one part of the Seder, right? The first part is Kiddush. Like every Shabbos and Yom Tov, we welcome the holiday, we drink a cup of wine. That's the first part of the Seder, pretty simple. The second part of the Seder is telling the story of redemption, telling the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which we call saying the Haggadah. Saying the Haggadah is telling the story and reading the beginning of the Hallel and saying what's called Birchas HaGeula, thanking Hashem for Geula, for redemption, and asking Him for the next redemption, following which we will drink our second cup of wine, and that part of the Seder is over. We told the story. Number 3 is eating matzah, eating maror, and eating a meal. At the end of that meal, we're going to eat the afikoman. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, it's at this part of the Seder where you're going to eat your Korban Pesach. You're going to eat your sacred sacrifice that was brought in the Beis HaMikdash that very day, a few hours earlier. And we're going to bench, like we do at every meal. That's section 3. And of course, it's concluded with a cup of wine. After benching, we drink our 3rd cup of wine. Then we come to the 4th part of the Seder. When we finish Hallel, we started Hallel earlier, but we finish the Hallel, and we say what's called Hallel HaGadol, which are all the Haidus, the famous Haidus, the 26 Haidus of Tehillim, Kuf Lamed Vav, Haidu L'Hashem Kitayv, Kilaylam Chaz, the Haidu L'Lekeya L'Kim Kilaylam Chaz, it's called Hallel HaGadol. We will say Nishmas Kol Chai. We will then conclude the Seder with Birchas Hashir, which is the blessing, Yishtabach, like we do Shabbos morning before Baruchu. And we will again drink our last cup of wine, and our Seder will be concluded. That's the Seder. Of course, there's Minhagim that so many people have afterwards. Chad Gadya, Echad Miyadeya, Shir Hashirim, whatever, every Kehillah according to its own Minhagim. But we're talking now about the structure of the Seder, of the Chazal, of the Chacham. The Rishonim, in order to make this palpable, gave simonim, what are they called? Mnemonics, right? Signs to remember this Seder. And what's known most among the Jewish people don't know there are other simonim, but what's known most is Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rochza, the 15 steps, which most attribute to Rashi. Rashi, who lived in the 11th century in France, most attribute these 15 steps to Rashi. It was Rashi's Seder in order to make it simple and palpable. Until today, children learn those 15 steps and really know everything that's going to happen. Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rochza, which are 15 steps that exist during these 4 sections of the Seder. I should say that there are those who say that these signs are not from Rashi, but one of the Balei HaTosfos, which was the house of Rashi, but not Rashi himself, and his name was Reb Shmuel Miplaiza. Some attribute these 15 simonim to Reb Shmuel Miplaiza, who was one of the Balei HaTosfos, the generations after Rashi. This Mishnah begins the Seder. Of course, the first step in the Seder is going to be Kiddush. And the reason we're going to start with Kiddush is because you're not allowed to eat anything before Kiddush. You're not allowed to drink anything before Kiddush, as we learned before. Chachamim did not allow a Jew to eat or drink before Kiddush Friday night or Yom Tov. And therefore, we cannot do anything that we're supposed to do on this night, meaning we can't eat anything or drink anything without making Kiddush. And that's why the opening of the Seder has to be with Kiddush, even though there are so many other mitzvahs that are applicable already the moment Pesach begins. That's why the Seder begins with Kiddush, and the Mishnah, which is now going to begin with the Seder, and it's going to go through the next Mishnahs, begins with Kiddush. Zag the Mishnah, Mazguloi Kais Rishon. They poured and prepared for the Balabayas, the master of the home, making the Seder, Kais Rishon, the first cup of wine. And again, the word that's used there is Mazguloi. Mazguloi means that they mixed, they diluted the wine with water. We go back to the truth, to the historical important idea that we mentioned, that at the time of the Gemara, the wine was so strong that they would always dilute a cup of raw wine, which was very strong and sharp, with water in order to make it more flavorsome, to give it a better taste so people would enjoy drinking it. And this was called meziga. So therefore they would be moizig, they would dilute every kais shel bracha. Whenever you used wine in a cup for benching or for kiddush or for havdalah, and especially the 4 cups of wine where there's a mitzvah to enjoy it, derech cheirus, like the Gemara said earlier, if you drink it raw, you're yotzeh, but you weren't yotzeh the mitzvah completely because it was not derech cheirus. Today, of course, our wine is not so sharp, and therefore the poskim tell us that we can drink it the way it is, and therefore it's better not to dilute it with water. Even though you could, but it's better not to dilute it because that will take away from the enjoyable taste of the wine the way it is itself. So today we don't have mazgu, but what we do is we fill up the cup with wine and we prepare for the bracha. We don't dilute the wine, but we fill up the cup. That's what mazgu means. You prepare the cup with wine.
What about, I think today's custom, it's a Kabbalistic custom, Mazigas Basayan in Mayan.
Right.
Mamtik Din.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that Kabbalistic concept, yeah.
But it has no shaykhus. You're saying if it's a wine, is palatable.
Right.
Are you saying that they would mix each case individually, or they would have a big pitcher and pour?
No, they would do it They would do it for the kais shabracha. It was like a way of honoring the kais. It was a way of enhancing the wine. You see, mazgulai. Mazgulai means diluted. Yeah, mazgulai kais rishon. Each becher, they would fill up. Let's say, just for argument's sake, right? You're using a cup of 4 ounces, right? They would put in an ounce of wine, 3 ounces of water, and now you made kiddush.
And I do it in the kois, not in a pitcher.
Yeah.
Just for the balabais, just for the wine.
Mazgulai. It says mazgulai, right. Because the truth is that the halachas of the Seder apply to every Jew, right? We learned before that women are also mechuyev in 4 cups of wine. And we discussed the fact that children are mechuyev in 4 cups of wine, at least according to Tanakama, and that's the halacha. Everyone is mechuyev in 4 cups of wine. But he says mazguloi, he's referring to the balabayas. In other words, the one who's leading the Seder, he's in charge, he's running the show, right? So mazguloi, that's why he says mazguloi, they poured it for him. And he's going to make kiddush, and he's going to be, he's going to be leading the Seder.
So what is, as opposed to grape juice?
I should say also that some pais can bring proof from this mazgulei that somebody else should pour. The minig that many has that somebody else pour, they bring this as the source. Mazgulei, he didn't pour himself. Some bring this as a source for it. Some of the pais.
Rabbi,
In other words, it's like part of liberty and chshivus. So the Poskim, the Ramah, the Bir Hagra discussed that this is a source for this concept.
so wine is opposed to grape juice is because wine has alcohol?
Yeah.
Where's that Ramah that says that
Siman Taf Ayin Gimel. Hilchas Pesach Siman Taf Ayin Gimel. Ramah Siman Taf Ayin Gimel. Mazguloi Kais Rishon, they diluted and they prepared. For the Balabai is the first cup of wine, and we say Kais Rishon because there's going to be another 3. So we call it Kais Rishon, and he's going to make Kiddush. And over here there's an argument. Beis Shammai says, Mevarech al hayoim, v'achach mevarech al hayai. First make a blessing on the day, and then make a blessing on the wine. Beis Hillel says, Mevarech al hayayin. First make a blessing on the wine, v'achach mevarech al hayoim, and then you make a blessing on the day. Here we have a fascinating machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, how we make Kiddush. Beis Shammai says you first make the blessing on the day, which means you lift up your cup of wine and you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikalam v'remimanu mikaloshim v'kedeshanu b'mitzvosov v'titen lanu Hashem Elokeinu ba'ava moyadim l'simcha etc. Chagam azmanim l'zos nes yoim chagam matzos hazeh, right? Zman cheresenu etc. Kivanu v'charta until the end. Baruch atah Hashem mekadesh Yisrael v'azmanim, and then you make a bracha on the wine, b'yirei pri hagafen, and you'll drink the wine. That's the view of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says no. First you make a bracha on the wine. Like we pick up the wine, we say Savri Maranam Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam b'yirei pri hagafen. Then you'll make the bracha on the day, which means you're going to thank God and express gratitude and sing His praises for the holiness of the day. You have chosen us from all the nations. You have lifted us up. You have given us Yamim Tovim. You have given us Pesach Zman Cheresenu. That's called Kedushas Hayoim. It's called the holiness of the day. Al Hayoim. It's a bracha on the day, not on the wine. You're not discussing the wine. Hagafen is a bracha on the wine, which you do whenever you drink wine. And this is a special bracha on the day. Beis Shammai says day, wine. Beis Hillel says wine and the day. And by the way, this argument is not just about Pesach. This argument is in Masechta Brachas about every single Shabbos, every single Friday night. How do you do Kiddush? Beis Shammai says first Kiddush on the day, and then Hagafen, Beis Hillel the opposite. So it's really a machloikas and Masechta Brachas about every single Friday night, not only on Pesach. It's very interesting machloikas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. We have it in Brachas, and we have it here again in Pesachim, the way it relates to the night of Pesach. What's the logic behind this argument? So the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanon. The rabbis taught in a Braisa. This is the Gemara explaining the Mishnah. So the Mishnah is over because the Mishnah was discussing the first part of the Seder. I told you the Seder has 4 parts. We just finished the first part, which is Kiddush. We poured a cup of wine, we made Kiddush, we have an argument how to make Kiddush, of course. Can't be that simple. We drank our Kiddush and we're good. Now the Gemara is going to explain the argument. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught us in a Braisa. Dvarim shebebeis Shammai or bebeis Hillel besuda. These are the things that there is an argument about between the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel when it comes to the meals. Because they had a few arguments. But Shammai and Beis Hillel didn't only have one argument. Many issues connected to the Suda, how to eat a meal, make Kiddush, and eat and drink, had arguments between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, discussed in Masechta Brachos and Mishnayos Brachos, and this is one of them. Beis Shammai says, Mevarech Halayim, you first make a bracha on the holiness of the day, Vachkach Mevarech Halayayin, and then on the wine. And the Braisa adds the logic. Mipnei Shahayoim Goyrim Leyayin Sheyavai. Because it's the day that's causing the wine to come. Meaning, why did we bring a cup of wine here and drink it before the meal? It was customary that in the middle of a meal people drank wine. But this is not a middle of a meal yet. Sit down, eat your meal, and then drink wine. No, you're filling up a cup of wine and you're doing a whole ceremony around the wine before the meal. Why are you drinking wine before the meal? The answer is, Hayoim Goyrim L'Yayin She'avai. The answer is because it's Yom Tov. Because it's Yom Tov of the Welt. Because it's a special day. Because it's a holy day. Because it's Pesach. Because it's Pesach, therefore, Sunday night, regular Sunday night, I don't do that. I don't go to my table and pick up a cup of wine and start chanting over the cup of wine. I sit down for my meal, and if there's good wine, hopefully we'll have a nice drink of wine, if we enjoy wine. But here, it's the day that's causing the wine to come before the meal. That's what he means. Hayoim goyrim liyayin sheyavai. It's the yoim that's goyrim for the yayin sheyavai. Before the Rashbam adds the two words, koidim su'uda. If the wine would come in the middle of the su'uda, it doesn't have to do with the day, but here, the wine comes before the su'uda, before the meal. That's because of the day. If so, says Beis Shammai, Kedushas Hayoim, the bracha on the day, should come first. Why? Because there's the Siba and there's the Mesuvav, right? In Jewish philosophy, we have the Siba is the cause, the Ilah, and the Mesuvav is the Olul, the effect. What's the Siba? What's the Mesuvav? Here, what's the Siba? What's the Mesuvav? Is the Mesuvav the holiday, or is the Siba the holiday? The answer is the Siba. What's the cause for making a bracha on wine now before the meal? What's the cause? What does it start with? The chicken or the egg? La'avdil. The Siba is Yom Tov, Pesach, right? It's a holy day. And because it's a holy day, I want to make Kiddush on wine. That's why I brought the wine. So the Siba is the holiness of the day. The Mesuvav is to drink the wine. So what should you do first? When you pick up the wine, what should you talk about first? Talk about the day, and then talk about the wine. Say the day, and then Agafen. The Siba should come before the Mesuvav.
Especially on Shabbos, because Shabbos happens without Beis Din, but Yom Tov happens with Beis Din, so a little difference. Like the people cause Yom Tov.
It's true. Shabbos, the Kedusha of Shabbos happens on its own. The Kedusha of Yom Tov happens through Beis Din, because Beis Din has to establish Rosh Chodesh, right? Yeah. That's true. And if Beis Din has a choice between 1 day and 2 days, and that's going to define when Yom Tov is, right? De facto, even if Beis Din doesn't sanctify the 30th day, right? Even if Beis Din doesn't make the 30th day Rosh Chodesh, de facto Rosh Chodesh is going to be the next day, right? But Beis Din has the power to make Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, and then Yom Tov is a day early. So we the people, define the Kedusha of Yom Tov, which is a big thing. It's a chash of a thing. That's why the nusach of the Kiddush is different Yom Tov from Shabbos. Shabbos we say Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. Yom Tov we should say Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yom Tov. Right? We don't say that. We say Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim. Why? Why by Yom Tov we say Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim? Fascinatingly, because Yom Tov, it's the Jewish people who make the time holy. How can we make time holy? Because we're holy. Because we're holy, that's what the Gemara says in Maseches Beitza. Because we're holy, Daf Yud Zayin, Daf Toiv. Because we're holy, we could make our times holy. We could define holiness. Mekadesh Yisrael, and Yisrael inu de mekachinu lizmanim. Shabbos, that's not the case. We don't do anything for Shabbos. The 7th day comes, and it's holy. And you remember that the Gemara said that the Amirayim Abaye cursed, he condemned the one who said that by Havdalah you say Mekadesh Yisrael. And the Meshech Chachma says, why? Because that sounds like we have to sanctify Sunday so that Shabbos should be holy. And that's not true. That's why there was the Gemara uses the word layat, curse, condemnation for the one who said Mekadesh Yisrael b'Havdalah. because it sounds like you have to make Sunday holy. Mekadesh Yisrael, Mitzvah Shabbos, you have to make holy so that Shabbos should be holy. Because if I make day 1 special, so then day 7 is holy, like Rosh Chodesh is Rosh Chodesh, so Pesach could be Pesach.
Where's that Gemara that Dr. Zalman?
Earlier, yeah. So that's the difference of the bracha. But the bottom line here is the wine, the drinking of the wine is a result of the holiness of the day. So Beis Shammai says logically, pick up your wine, speak about the cause, and then speak about the effect. Sibba Mesuvav. Very logical, right?
Logical, but does he do it on Shabbos also?
Same thing on Shabbos.
On Shabbos he
Also.
would do...
The day is causing the wine to come. The wine is a consequence. The wine is a result of the day. The day is the antecedent, and the wine is the consequence, right? The day is the siba. The holiness of the day is the siba, and the wine is the mesuvav, the result. First do the siba, then you do the mesuvav. First you honor the parent, then you honor the child. The wine comes because of the day. It's the day that creates the wine. It's not the wine that creates the day. Sounds very logical, right? It's very beautiful words. Hayoim goyrim leyayin sheyavai. The wine is born from the day. It's the day that generates the wine. It's not the wine that makes the day. It's the day that makes the wine. Not makes the wine, but causes us to drink the wine. At this point, we would have never drank wine. We would not drink wine before a meal. So,
And if we would change today to Beis Shammai, the children for sure would be aroused. Why is it different?
And Beis Shammai now adds something else. One more point. He says, Ukvar kiddush hayoim v'adayin lo ba. I have another reason, a second reason. Kvar kiddush hayoim. The day already became holy, and the wine did not yet come. In other words, speak about the order of things. The moment nightfall happened, it's Pesach. The day is holy. I may still be in shul. I may still be preparing for my Seder. The bracha on the wine comes when I'm ready to drink the wine. But the Kedushas Hayoim comes right when Pesach comes in. The moment a person accepts upon himself the Kedusha of Shabbos or Yom Tov, even by day, or even if he doesn't, by Tzeisak Rechavim when nightfall, there's already Kedusha Hayoim. That's what he says. Ukvar Kiddush Hayoim v'adayin yayin lo ba. Another reason to make the bracha for the day before the bracha on the wine is, but the Kedusha of the day came when it descended upon us the moment Pesach came. But the wine came to the table only when we're ready to start the meal. So therefore, you follow the order and the sequence of events. So now I have to make a bracha on two things. Make a bracha on the first thing, and then make a bracha on the thing that came later. What came first? Kedushas Hayoim, not the wine. You don't drink. The wine is not there before. The wine is part of the meal after Pesach starts. So first make a bracha welcoming and thanking Hashem for the day which started already an hour ago, or whenever I accepted Yom Tov. And now comes number 2. The wine is being brought out. I want to drink wine. I make a bracha on wine. Very nice.
So first is a cause and effect, and the second one is precedence.
Yeah. It's very similar. The two reasons are similar. The first reason is cause and effect, and the second reason is precedence, chronology, Seder. You have to follow a Seder. First come, first serve. You came first, I service you first. Right? Lahavdil in a restaurant, you came first, I service you first. You're the first client. Kedushas Hayoim came first. Pesach is here already. So speak about Pesach. Then I'm going to talk about the wine. So Beis Shammai is following a very logical sequence.
Sounds good, so that's probably what we do.
Do we? Beis Hillel says, Mevarech al hayayin v'akach mevarech al hayoim. You make a bracha on the wine, and then you make a bracha on the day. Why? Mipnei shahayayin goyrim lekiddush sheteyamer. Because it's the wine that's causing kiddush to be said. Meaning, if there's no wine, or at least a substitute for wine, I should say in brackets, like if there's no wine, you could make on bread. But if there's no wine, or a substitute for wine, there's no kiddush. So it's the wine that's allowing you, that's justifying, that's creating the kiddush. That's the mechanism. How do I make kiddush Friday night or Pesach night? On wine. Or at least a substitute on wine. I should say that again. if there's no wine, you could still make kiddush on bread. But you need a substitute for wine. The takana is on wine or a substitute for wine. So if there's no wine, there's no kiddush. I can't make kiddush. I can make kiddush by davening, but that's a different kiddush. That kiddush you could do right away. Remember, most Rishonim hold that the obligation to make kiddush on a cup of wine, Shabbos or Pesach, is only rabbinic. Min HaTorah, you're mekayim the mitzvah of kiddush, Zachar Esem HaShabbos L'Katshay, through words, which means that by davening, if I said in davening, we say in Shemon Esrei of davening, Mekadesh HaShabbos, right? Or Shemon Esrei of Pesach, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim, or I say Vayichulu HaShamayim v'Aretz Vayikadesh Vayivarech Elokim Esyom HaShvi Vayikadesh Oisoi. Before I came home from Shul, I was already mekayim the mitzvah of Kiddush. Now we're doing a new Kiddush. Now we're doing a special second Kiddush. This Kiddush needs a cup of wine. I can't get up in my house and just say, let's make Kiddush and say Hashem's name, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. That would be a bracha levatala. I need a cup of wine to make that Kiddush. Ooh, so Beis Shammai said, Beis Hillel says, if there's no wine, there's no Kiddush. Since there's no wine, there's no Kiddush. So it's the wine that's creating the Kiddush. So what's the real Siba and the Mesuvav? You said, Beis Shammai, that the Siba was the Kedushas Hayom, because that's why we're making Kiddush now. And I'm telling you, but if there's no wine, there's no Kiddush. So therefore, the wine is the cause. It allows you to make Kiddush, so you have to first make a bracha on the wine.
Beis Shammai agree that if there is no wine,
Yes, Beis Shammai would agree to this. If there's no wine and there's no bread, you can't say a Kiddush, a second Kiddush. Even Beis Shammai would agree. Yeah, even Beis Shammai would agree. And then Beis Hillel gives another reason. Davar acher, I have another reason. Birchas hayayin tedira. The bracha on wine is common. It's consistent. It's perpetual. It's perpetuated throughout the year. Birchas hayayim eina tedira. The blessing on the holiness of the day is not common. It's only said on Yom Tov or on Shabbos.
We are on Yom Tov.
Right. So he says, Tadir, v'sheina. Okay, one second. Tadir v'sheina, tadir kaida. Whenever you have in front of you two mitzvahs, one is tadir. How does he say tadir? Consistent? Frequent. One is frequent and one is infrequent. So the frequent one should precede the infrequent one. The frequent one gains precedence. Now this is a very interesting principle in halacha, tadir v'sheina tadir kaidem, which Beis Hillel applies here. What's the principle based on? The Gemara in Maseches Zvachim Daf Pei Tes learns this out from Pesach. Soon we're going to have Pesach, and in the Kriyas HaTorah of Pesach, we speak about the Musaf. Every day of Pesach you read Torah and the Kriyas HaTorah, and you read the carbon Musaf of Pesach. And the expression over there is as follows. Milvad oilas haboiker, asher la oilas hatamid, tasu es eila. It's in Parshas Pinchas. In addition to the carbon oila in the morning, which is the carbon tamid, you should do these special offerings, right? Milvad oilas haboiker, asher la oilas hatamid, tasu es eila. And then we have ka'eila, ka'eila, right? That's right after that. What does milvad oilas haboiker mean? It means, in addition to oilas haboiker, you should do this, which basically is teaching us that this carbon Pesach, the carbon Musaf of every day of Pesach, has to come after the carbon Tamid. Milvad oilas haboiker. Besides, in addition, after oilas haboiker, you're going to do this one. Asher lo oilas hatamid is superfluous. Milvad oilas haboiker, tasu es eila. He says, Milvad oilas haboiker, asher lo oilas hatamid. We know that there's an oil every boiker. The Chumash already taught that to us. So for this, the Gemara says that the pasuk is giving us a reason. You know why you have to first bring the regular carbon tamid in the morning before the carbon musaf? Milvad oilas haboiker tasu es eila. You know why? Because it's oilas hatamid. Because it's done every day. Because it's done every day, therefore, when when you have an opportunity to do one or the other, you have to first choose that which is done every day. Because tadir v'she'enei tadir kaidem. This is the source that the frequent mitzvah should be performed before the infrequent mitzvah. Yeah. This is the Rashbam. I just quoted the Rashbam. Tadir kaidem. If you see tadir kaidem, take a look at the Rashbam before. You see at Rashban, hayayin goyrim lekiddush sheteyamer. The first reason is shem ein lo yayin I pass ein mekadesh, va mekadesh al paska mekadesh al yayin ubirchas apas kaidem, and therefore the wine causes the kiddush. Tadir kaide be mesechtes vachim nafkalon mehaikra deksiv b'musafen milvad oilas haboiker shel oilas hatamid milvad mashma la'achar shakravas la'achar shekrafta hatamid takriv hamusafen v'kadarshinan shel oilas hatamid kra yiseru. It's superfluous. Asa lemila if it comes to teach us the b'shvil shu tadir higdimoi hakasav umikan atadon l'chol hatadirim. Comes Beis Hillel and says, how often do you make hagafen? How often do you make hagafen? Birchas Hayayin is called tadir. It's frequent. Why? Every single Shabbos, Friday night, Shabbos day, you make kiddush on wine. You make hagafen. Every Yom Tif, you make kiddush on wine. Every Havdalah, you make a cup of wine. Whenever there's a chasana, Sheva brachas, yeah? Birchas Hamazon. According to the opinion, the Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine. Whenever you're benching, Shabbos, Yom Tov, a cup of wine. So therefore, it's called Tadir. How often do you make this Kiddush of Pesach, Kedushas Hayayim? Once a year. You can't compare it. You can't compare it. Even if you want to include all the Kiddushes, but you make wine even beyond Kiddush. You make wine by Havdalah, you use wine by Birchas Hamazon, you use wine by Birchas Eris and V'Nisuyin. The bottom line is that the Hagafen in Jewish life is much more frequent than the Kiddush in Jewish life. This is Tadir, this is Einoi Tadir, this comes first. When I have to make Boyer Pri Hagafen or Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim, the Hagafen has to come first. I just want to add, I said this because as the Shagas Aryeh explains, we should say that the Birchas Hayayin is Tadir because people always drink wine. Some people drink wine every day, so you could say it's Tadir 365 days a year. But the truth is that the Gemara tells us in Masechtas Zvachim, Daf Tzadik Aleph, that something that's common but not as part of a mitzvah is not called Tadir. What we call Tadir in Jewish life is, it's a mitzvah that's Tadir. Not Tadir that is just always happening. The fact that I may drink wine every day of the week is... No, if you're drinking wine, there's a mitzvah to make a bracha on the wine. But we're talking about, is there a mitzvah to drink wine? Right. I don't have to drink wine. So the Shagas Aryeh explains, that's why, what does Tadir here mean? Tadir doesn't mean here that you drink wine 365 days a year, possibly, or much of it, and Kiddush you're only making on Pesach or a few times. Tadir is about a mitzvah that's Tadir. A mitzvah that's frequent takes precedence over a mitzvah that's less frequent. Oh. So this is what Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel say. So again, Beis Shammai says, the day brought about the wine. Why am I making a bracha on wine now? Before a meal? Because it's Pesach. Beis Shammai also said, the day preceded the wine. The Kedusha of the day came before. Beis Hillel says, no. The wine allows me to make Kiddush. Plus, the wine is frequent. Yeah.
But Beis Shammai could say, you're right, Beis Hillel. Toder v'shein and toder kodem. Okay, I say it also. Because every Shabbos and every Yom Tov, my bracha of the day precedes the yain, and it's the same frequency. It's as frequent.
No,
because I don't drink wine during the year.
Right, but even if you don't drink wine during the year, you're going to make Havdalah on wine. You're going to do Sheva brachas on wine. You're going to do Birchas Hamazon on wine. So L'Poyel Mamish, from a mitzvah perspective, it's a more frequent mitzvah to use a cup of wine and make hagafen on it.
You make Milah, Chasana, Havdalah.
Milah, Chasanas, and all these milestones. Benching, according to many opinions, benching needs a cup of wine, right? We learned there's 3 opinions. If even one person who benches, or 3 people who bench, or 10 people, or it's only a mitzvah and a mufchar. But the point is, it's much more frequent.
Maybe Beis Shammai also says, first we do mitzvah on the mitzvah, and then we do
Right.
wine at the end. So you can use the same argument. In a way, he has 3 arguments instead of 2.
The wine is not ma'akif.
He's not that argument.
This is Mila on the 8th day. You
Right. No, the point is, it's a mitzvah.
No,
It's
but I'm asking. It seems to beg the question because the day there's a mitzvah's Mila. Let's use Mila as an example. And therefore, there's a mitzvah for me to be Gamal my son, and therefore I take a kos at that time on the 8th day. So what do you want to say that it's more tader? According to Beis Hillel, we make
Yeah. Even Kiddush Shabbos Day. We make Kiddush Shabbos Day on wine. You're just making Boyer Pri Hagafen. And it's a mitzvah, right? It's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan.
saying
And Kiddush, this is Tadir.
And
Right, this is more frequent.
But in the case of Mila, you're commanded on the 8th day. You're not commanded.
Ein Chaname, you're right.
So according, how would Beis Hillel analyze that? I'm sorry. How would Beis Hillel, which says that the wine comes first before the day? In the case of Mila, you're commanded before.
Ein Chaname, yeah. You're right.
There are exceptions even.
Yeah, of course.
He's saying, but in general.
Of course, yeah. So this is the Braisa explaining. The Gemara started Tana Rabbanon. The rabbis taught us a Braisa explaining the rationale behind the two views of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel.
Is it considered a mitzvah to drink a revis of wine every day Chol HaMoed?
Yeah.
That's in the category of mitzvah?
Yeah. Ein simcha l'bayayin. Ein simcha l'bayayin. Zog the Braisa finishes, V'hilchasa kedivrei Beis Hillel. The halacha is like Beis Hillel. The Braisa concludes not only with an argument, but also with a machloikus. Zog the Gemara, my davar acher. Why did Beis Hillel give one reason and say davar acher, a second reason? Why did Beis Hillel need to give a second reason? It gave a first reason, which was the wine is causing the kiddush to happen. Without wine, I can't make kiddush. Now, this is a strange question. Why doesn't the Gemara ask the same thing on Beis Shammai? Beis Shammai also gave two reasons. But the truth is, Beis Shammai gave the two reasons consecutively. Beis Hillel said davar acher. Beis Shammai said one reason and went straight into the second reason. Beis Hillel introduced the words davar acher. Davar acher means there's like some need that's compelling me. I'm compelled to give another explanation. So the Gemara says, why does Beis Hillel feel compelled? The answer is because Beis Hillel wanted to say this. You might say Hasam Tarti v'Hachachada. Beis Shammai has two arguments supporting him. He has two reasons. One is the wine was caused by the day caused the wine to come, and number two, the day came before the wine. V'Hachachada, and I only have one reason supporting me, that the wine is allowing me to make Kiddush. So I'm going to answer Hachanami Tartininu. I also have two rationales. If you're going to side with Beis Shammai only because he has an extra boost, I also have an extra boost. What's my second point? Davar acher, tadir v'sheine, tadir kaidem. And the Braisa says, v'halacha kedivrei Beis Hillel. Asks the Gemara, pshita. It's obvious. Why do we have to teach it? The Hanafik Baska. We all know the story that a voice came out of heaven. The Gemara tells the story in Masechta Eruvin Daf Yud Gimel, a fascinating story. For 3 years, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued about so many different issues in halacha. Beis Shammai said the halacha is like us, Beis Hillel said the halacha is like us, and the Gemara says that after 3 years, a baskel came out and said, Eilu va'eilu divrei Elokim chayim va'halacha keBeis Hillel. These and these are both the words of the living God, but the law follows Beis Hillel. This is the famous source of the expression Eilu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. This was part of the voice that came from heaven. In Masechta Eruvin, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis Yud Gimel Begematria Echad. So we have this baskel that somehow made peace. After 3 years of debating and fighting and arguing, the baskel said, both are the words of the living God. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, but halacha keBeis Hillel. So we don't need to now specify at every argument that halacha keBeis Hillel. Why does this Braisa feel the need to say halacha keBeis Hillel? So the Gemara says, if you want, you can answer koidem baskel. This Braisa was taught before the baskel. This tradition of the Tanoim came before the baskel, so therefore this was just a traditional dispute between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and they had to take a vote and follow the majority, and therefore they said halacha keBeis Hillel. I'll give you another answer. Obviously, there's something missing in the first answer because probably this Braisa was taught later. So the Gemara gives a second answer. La'achar baskel. Really, this Braisa was taught after the baskel, but Rabbi Yeshua. This Braisa is consistent. The author of this Braisa is consistent with the view of Rabbi Yeshua. The Amar, Rabbi Yeshua maintains ein mashgichin bebaskel. You never take notice of a baskel and use it as a source to determine halacha. And this is referring to the famous story in Masechta Baba Metzia Daf Nun Tes about the oven. There was an oven that they called Tanur Shel Achnoi, a famous oven known as the Tanur of Achnoi, which triggered one of the greatest machlokes in Jewish history between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer said that the oven was pure. The Chachamim said that the oven was impure. a baskel came out of heaven and said, why are you arguing with Rabbi Eliezer? Halacha kemoisei b'chol makom. The halacha is like him everywhere. And the Gemara says that they were arguing a whole day, and Rabbi Eliezer performed 3 miracles. He said, if I'm right, let the carob tree be uprooted. And it was uprooted. And then he said, if I'm right, let the canal of water, the brook of water flowing this way, flow backwards. And it flowed backwards. And he said, if I'm right, let the walls of the Beis Medrash cave in. And they caved in. And each time Rabbi Yeshua said, what are you mixing in? Carob tree, water, what are you mixing in? Where are you? And then a baskel came out and said, what are you arguing? Halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer b'chol makom. Says the Gemara, Amad Rabbi Yeshua al Raglov. Rabbi Yeshua stood up on his feet and he said, Torah loy b'shamayim. Moshe Rabbeinu says at the end of Chumash, in Parshas Netzavim, loy b'shamayim. Torah is not in heaven. What does it mean Torah is not in heaven? Ein mashgichin b'baskel. Torah will not be decided in heaven. Torah will be decided on earth. Why? Why? Because kvar nitna Torah, you already gave us the Torah. And you told us, loy b'shamayim. God who gave us the Torah said it's not in heaven, it's on earth. It has to be decided on earth. The pasuk says in Parshas Mishpatim, Acharei Rabim lahatos. We follow the majority. That's how we ascertain, that's how we determine the verdict when there is a dispute. There has to be a mechanism to deal with disputes, because disputes are going to be part of the fabric of Torah, because Torah Shabbal Peh is developed through the human mind. So people are going to argue. Not everything says explicitly in Chumash. Many things are subject to argument, as we know in the Gemara. So therefore, we have to have a mechanism. What's the mechanism? The mechanism is Achrei Rabim Lahatos. Says Rabbi Yeshua, Torah loy b'shamayim hi. Torah is not b'shamayim. Ein mashgichin b'baskel. Imagine a voice comes from heaven. It's not always a fake voice. And Rabbi Yeshua gets up and says, sorry, we do not define Torah based on a baskel. And what did they say? They said Rabbi Eliezer is wrong, even though it's Divrei Elokim Chayim, and the halach is like the Chachamim, that the oven was impure. The fascinating thing is the Gemara says that Rabbi Yonasan met Eliyahu Hanavi, and he asked Eliyahu Hanavi, it's all over there in Baba Metzia, he asked Eliyahu Hanavi, what did God do while this was happening? What was Hashem doing while this was happening? And he said, Hashem was laughing or quelling and said, my children have triumphed over me. They have been victorious over me. They were menatzeach. They were victorious over me. It's quite a story. Quite a story. So the Gemara says, this is following the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua says, we can't use baskals to tell us how to follow halacha. And therefore, even though a baskel said halacha k'beis Hillel, Rabbi Yeshua said it's irrelevant. And that's why this brayso follows Rabbi Yeshua, says the baskel is inconsequential for our behavior. And therefore, we had to take a vote and decide halacha like beis Hillel. And that's why we say halacha k'beis Hillel, irrelevant of the baskel, even though there was a baskel that halacha is always like beis Hillel. So this is a very interesting ha'ara here. Meaning, it's a good ha'ara. Let's take a look in Tosfos. The Amar Eimash Gichem Baskel. Take a look in Tosfos. Eimash Gichem Baskel. Be'im Taimar, you may ask a question.
Where is it?
The Amar Eimash Gichem Baskel. The third Tosfos on Kuf Yudalad Amar Aleph. You see? Third Tosfos Kuf Yudalad Amar Aleph 114a. The Amar Ein Mashgichem Bebaskel. Ve'im Taimar Ma'ishna de Kaimelon Kebaskel de Beis Hillel Ve'loi Kaimelon Kebaskel de Rabbi Eliezer. Why is it taka that when it comes to the baskel of Beis Hillel, we actually follow it? We say halacha Beis Hillel. In other words, we do the baskel. But the baskel of Rabbi Yeshua, he just rejected it. He said, no, what's taka the logic? Is there a difference? Or it's the same? V'yashloimar says Tosfos, fascinating. The hache Beis Hillel haveruba. Let me explain. In the case of Rabbi Eliezer, the baskel was trying to force them to go against the standards of halacha. The standard of halacha is, how do you define it? By the majority. And the baskel was saying, I don't care about the majority. I'm going to go according to the minority. Majority of a bezdin. The Chachamim argues Rabbi Eliezer. Here Rabbi Yeshua said the baskel can't uproot halacha. Similar to what the Rambam teaches us in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, if a prophet comes, and we know he's an authentic prophet, he makes a lot of miracles. He splits seas. He resurrects the dead. Not bad. Bad. And then he comes and tells us, I heard from God that you could start eating chametz on Pesach. Or I heard from God that Shabbos should become Sunday, or that tefillin is abolished. The Rambam says you have to kill him. He's resurrecting the dead. He's a Navi Sheker. Why? Because we don't know that a prophet is true or not. People could make miracles. People can do crazy things. There's optical illusions. We don't know anything. Why do we believe a Navi? Because Moshe Rabbeinu told us, Elav Tishma'on. It's because the Torah tells us to believe a Navi if he has certain credentials. The Torah is the basis of all truth, because Matan Torah, everybody was a Navi. So if the Navi is coming to change Torah, he pulls the rug out of under his own feet. He pulls the rug away from himself, because the whole reason we believe him and listen to him is because the Torah says to do it. If he changes Torah, Moshe said the mitzvahs are eternal, and he says, no, you can eat chametz on Pesach, God told me. Automatically, he disqualifies himself, he delegitimizes himself. Because our basis for ascertaining truth is the Torah that was given to us by Matan Torah. B'meila, Rabbi Yeshua says, when the Baskel is contradicting what Torah teaches us about the mechanism of developing halacha, ein mashgichim b'Baskel. By Beis Hillel, that wasn't the case. Beis Hillel was the majority. Actually, the halacha should have been like Beis Hillel. You didn't need a Baskel. So what was the value of the Baskel? So Tosfos says, the Beis Hillel have a rubah, ela the Beis Shammai mechada ditvei. Beis Shammai, the Gemara says, they were very sharp. They were much sharper. So there were certain qualms. People were not comfortable. Because Beis Shammai said, of course the majority is on your side. You know why? Because they don't understand us. Most of Bezdin doesn't understand us. We're the minority because it's deeper. So there was this certain sense of insecurity. Avol Hasem, the Baskel Hoya Keneged Rabbim Loikaim Malachi. But over there by Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, the Baskel was against the majority. We don't accept it. So why did the Baskel come out? O Baskel Yatzasa Ela Lekvoidai. Kedamrin and Hasem in Hashamayim Yechicho. The reason the Baskel came out was not to tell the Jews to make the halacha that way. It was to honor Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer told the Chachamim, heaven will prove that I'm right. And heaven acquiesced for the honor of Rabbi Eliezer. Heaven said Rabbi Eliezer is right, but the Chachamim knew it doesn't mean anything in terms of halacha. Heaven can do heaven's thing, and earth got to do earth's thing. It honored Rabbi Eliezer, but it wouldn't change them. Nitzchuni, banai nitzchuni. There's a beautiful word I saw from the Maharatz Chayes, Reb Tzvi Chayes, Reb Tzvi Chiyus. It's spelled Chages, right? Chajes. In the back of the Vilna Shas, Maharatz Chiyus. He lived in the 19th century in Poland, Galicia. He was from the great Gaonim of the generation. So the Maharatz Chayes, Reb Tzvi Chayes writes, Nitzchuni. What does it mean? God says, my children were victorious over me. What's pshat? They were victorious over me. So the pasuk Achirabim Lahatos also comes from Hashem. They weren't victorious over him. So he says the word Nitzchuni really is the word Netzach. Netzach means eternity, like La'ad or L'Netzach Netzachim, right? Nitzchius means forever, eternity. Netzach Selavoad. So he says Nitzchuni Bonai Nitzchuni. My children turned me into eternity. They found the eternity in me. Meaning, here's Rabbi Eliezer, and there's a lot of miracles happening. The carob tree is uprooted, the water is going in the wrong direction, the walls are indented, a baskel comes out. The world is being transformed, right? Comes Rabbi Yeshua and says, I don't care, there's a pasuk in Chumash. The pasuk in Chumash trumps everything else. Nitzchuni, banai nitzchuni. They identified the nitzchius of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the nitzchius of Torah, the eternity of Torah. The whole world is turning over. Okay, the world is turning over. But there's a pasuk in Chumash, Achrei Rabim Lahatos. That's eternal. That's timeless. That's immutable. Nothing can change it. Seas can split, carob trees can be uprooted, waters can flow in the opposite direction, walls can be indented, voices could come from heaven, but nothing can uproot a pasuk in Chumash. Achrei Rabim Lahatos. Nitzchuni banai nitzchuni. So Rabbi Yeshua disagreed and would not listen to that baskel. V'im toimar im kain heichi kamer Rabbi Yeshua hi or Rabbi Yeshua koya baskel Rabbi Eliezer. If so, Parshas Mishpatim Achri Rabbim Lahatos. That's the basis that we follow the majority. When there's a dispute, what do? You follow the Rabbim, and that's how we do it. That's throughout all the generations. You follow the Rabbim, you follow the majority. And it doesn't mean the minority was wrong. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. But in halacha, you have to choose one way. You can't do both.
Now, historically speaking, about Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, I don't understand how the Beis Hillel had a majority where the whole house of Beis Hillel was pretty much killed. There was a big machlokes, including killing. So how is it possible that he had a majority? Just from historic.
No, they weren't actually killed. It says there was a sword, but it doesn't. Nobody was killed.
Okay. There is a book that which says that 130 students of Beis Hillel was killed. Well, mamish eliminated.
By Beis Shammai. That's secular historians who
It actually comes from the Rabbi Folk wrote a book about
that they were killed by Beis Shammai.
Yeah, but bringing the sources, from the Talmud.
No, I never saw that. It says not cherev, but not, I don't.
No, it was not. It wasn't.
I don't know. You could send me a picture. I don't know.
I'll bring you a book.
Okay, I would like to see it.
It's a strange book, but nevertheless.
Okay, I never heard of it, but I don't know. So he says, so why are you saying that this Bryce is consistent with Rabbi Yeshua, who says not to listen to a baskel? Rabbi Yeshua was talking about that baskel of Rabbi Eliezer, and you're saying it's two different baskels. Because Rabbi Yeshua said ein mashgichin bebaskel. Why? Mishum de loy bashamayim mi mashma de bechol duchte leslan lamezel basar baskel. The words of Rabbi Yeshua is, we don't look at a baskel because loy bashamayim hi. Rabbi Yeshua's words are intimating, not just in this case, but b'chalal, we will not use a baskel to become part of the halachic decision process. So that's why, from Rabbi Yeshua's perspective, even by Beis Hillel, we should not monitor and look at the baskel. Even in the case of Beis Hillel, the baskel is not uprooting the halacha. Nonetheless, Rabbi Yeshua says flat statement, ein mashgichin bebaskel. That's why this brisa that says halacha Beis Hillel, he says it's following the view of Rabbi Yeshua that ein mashgichin bebaskel, and therefore you have to say clearly halacha Beis Hillel, not because of the baskel, but because they had this vote, and as a result of that, they decided that halacha Beis Hillel.
Now, don't we learn that if authority is corrupt, then you don't have to follow?
Of course.
What if the majority is corrupt? They have a basket.
That was my question. Isn't Rabbi Shua the based in?
Yeah, no. The whole basis, that's a very important qualification you're asking.
They put him in Keren, they put
Rabbi Eliezer in Cherem. After this, they put Rabbi Eliezer in Cherem.
Rabbi Akiva had to come.
Rakiva notified him, yeah. Rakiva notified. And the reason they did it is because they felt that Rabbi Eliezer was such a great person. He was considered the greatest of the generation, or one of the greatest, and it would undermine the whole
It was a threat.
the whole system of halacha. But
why would someone who was so great, Bill Keneged, put down the door? Because he felt he was right?
he felt he was right.
He was the son of Shimon Bar Yochai.
No. That's Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar. Yeah. This is Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. He's known as Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, Rabbi Eliezer the Great. He was this Rabbi Eliezer, and they put him in Cherem afterwards. So the Gemara is saying, so yes, very good observation. If there's an issue of corruption, then it's not a Sanhedrin. The Gemara has an expression, Kesher Rishayim, Einem and Aminyan. If it's corrupt people coming together, it has nothing to do with Torah, nothing to do with Sanhedrin. You're not allowed to listen to them. We're talking about Sanhedrin here, who were chosen as Sanhedrin because of their impeccable and flawless reputation, not only in terms of towering intellect, but equally, or most importantly, in terms of fear of heaven and absolute, unequivocal, unwavering dedication to integrity and truth. If that component is missing, then you got no system.
Who can judge it? Today, look, in there, it's true.
You could. I'll tell you why. You could.
Most of the Haredim don't accept it.
Right.
So what's the...
Halacha has a very powerful immunity system. That's what judges it. What judges it today? Even today, halacha has a very strong immune system, because since the Jewish people's Messiah is so powerful and explicit, and everything was transcribed and written down, if I or any other rabbi in the world get up today and make a statement, it will immediately be contrasted by the text, by the traditions. The first question will be, what's your source? If I'll show a source, it's legitimate. If I'll come up with some new thing, right, you can use a mic on Shabbos, or we don't need a mechitza anymore, etc. Or what? My point is, the immune system, it's literally like the immune system. Allah is a very powerful immune system. It spits out that which doesn't belong in the immune system. The reformers were very, very powerful. And we know that they changed the Jewish world. We know where the Jewish world is today. But let's face it, they could not destroy the immunity of halacha, because the Shulchan Aruch was there for everybody to see. They changed a lot of things. They transformed millions of lives, right? New types of temples. But the integrity of Judaism remained intact, which, by the way, is why Gedolei Yisrael in later generations were so afraid of Sanhedrins. Why were they afraid of Sanhedrins? Because Sanhedrin means central power, central authority. Whenever you have central power and authority, there has to be one prerequisite, that it cannot be manipulated. Because the moment you manipulate central power, you know what happens, right? What happens is, Reb Chaim Brisker once said, he gave a mashal. He said, I like the days before electricity when we used candles. You know why? He said, if my candle goes out, you still have a candle burning in your house. He says, but when the circuit goes out, when the central circuit goes out, it's dark everywhere. This was his opposition to central authorities that rule. He says, because if it gets dark, if the fuse goes out, it gets dark everywhere. Which is why they dissolved the Sanhedrin at some point. It's one of the reasons.
At this point we're talking now, this is post-Bible.
Eretz Yisrael, yeah.
Where were they sitting now when this happened?
Well, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says the Sanhedrin went through 10 locations.
This is Yavna?
This is Yavna. Apparently. This is Yavna.
Yavna 1 or Yavna 2?
But we know
Yavna 1 probably, no?
we know also that power, that it's a good power that first today
You're right.
was a light, and
You're
we
right.
are much better off than
Of course. We know the mila of Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin, they would decide, they would make decisions, and that's it. But once you have dispersion and persecution and different political issues going on and the room for corruption, you have to be very careful. The reason halacha survived all challenges is because the Sanhedrin was dissolved, and rabbis and leaders and sages throughout the generations referenced everything. You wrote a tshuva and you brought your sources. You had students. Everything could be debated. Everything could be questioned. The Ramah writes a psak and somebody will question him, and nobody will say, you have a chutzpah to question the Ramah? That language wasn't part of Judaism. You have to question the Ramah. Respectfully, not with arrogance. But you have to question the Ramah if you feel that something is maybe a mistake. You have to. Nobody ever said, you have a chutzpah to argue with the Rambam? You have a chutzpah? The Rosh is arguing with the Rambam? You have a chutzpah? Who ever heard of this? Of course, not only have a chutzpah, this is what the Rambam wants. If you're looking for emes, you have to argue with respect, knowing who you are, knowing who they are, understanding your limitations. But the point is, it's always open for critique. It's open. Why is it open? Because if it's not open, you have to be very careful.
Because you're not afraid of truth.
You're not afraid of truth, exactly. The opposite of the Soviet Union, right? Exact opposite. The antithesis of propaganda. Propaganda is based on no truth. Propaganda. And truth is based on everybody has access. We got nothing to hide. If it's true, I got nothing to hide. Every child could learn, look at the sources and ask. Yes, he has to ask with respect, with humility, but he can ask. So therefore, Rabbi Yeshua holds that ein mashgichim bebaskel in any case. Now, lahalacha, I should say, as Tosfos intimates, we do pask in every place like Beis Hillel, because not like Rabbi Yeshua, we do accept this baskel because it's not contradicting the system of halacha. And there's the famous expression in Brachas, Beis Shammai b'mokem Beis Hillel ein a Mishnah. That because of this, Beis Shammai, in the presence of Beis Hillel, in lieu of Beis Hillel, ain't a Mishnah. It's not accepted. We accept Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai. There's one point I want to address here finally, the last piece of today's shir, and that is how are we supposed to understand the machloikas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel here. They both are very logical. Beis Shammai speaks about cause and effect and chronology, and Beis Hillel also speaks about cause and effect. But each one is like identifying something else. Beis Shammai is saying it's the holiness of the day that creates the wine. And Beis Hillel says it's the wine that creates the kiddush. You can't make kiddush without wine, right? And then Beis Hillel speaks about frequency. And Beis Shammai also knew that it's frequent. He also knew tadir, it's tadir. So there's a commentator on Mishnayos. His name is Rabbi Yisrael Lipshitz, known as the Tiferes Yisrael. In the Mishnayos Yachin Boyas, he's one of the great commentators. He lived in the 19th century in Germany. He was one of the great rabbis of Germany, Tiferes Yisrael, Rabbi Yisrael Lipshitz. He wrote the commentary Yachin Boyas. You know the Mishnayos Yachin Boyas? That's his commentary on Mishnayos. On this machloikas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel and Brachas, the Tiferes Yisrael, and I should say uncharacteristically of his commentary, and probably uncharacteristic so much of a German rabbi, writes, he says, I have a very good metaphor or story to illustrate their debate. And this is what he says. I can't remember it verbatim, but I'm telling you the thrust of what he says, and then I'm going to elaborate how I understand it. But the point is his. And he says as follows. We have to go back to a generation when food was scarce, and you never knew if this breakfast is your last breakfast and the next supper is your last supper, because food was not. You go into a Shiner's shul and you have endless soup and a kiddush happening and a tikkun happening. Food was a rare commodity, and when you had it, you cherished it. So he says there was a wealthy businessman, Rabbi Yisrael Lipshitz says, who stayed at a tavern. They came there very, very late, and they had to wake up very early to go to the city, to the big city where they had a marketplace and business. And he had a lot of business to do there, sell merchandise, and he was going to make a huge amount of money, an exuberant, enormous sum of money. So the wealthy man woke up very, very early, and he harnessed the horses, and he was ready to roll. The problem is, his servant, the balagola, his servant, the coachman, was sleeping, and he could not wake him up. There's nothing he could do to wake him up. And Rabbi Yisrael Lipshitz, the Tiferes Yisrael, says there was a reason for it. He wasn't making any money. For him, being there was as valuable as going anywhere else. The wealthy man was looking forward to the tremendous sum of money, but he wasn't. There was nothing for it. He just had a job to do, and he was really not excited. So somebody tells the wealthy man, you're making a big mistake. What you should have done is don't just wake him up and say, we have to go there to do business. He couldn't care less about your business. It's your business. You're making the money, not him. You should have told him we have an unbelievable meal prepared here. And you should have prepared him the most lavish breakfast imaginable. And then he would have jumped out of bed because he's probably hungry, hasn't eaten for a day or two. And he would have been up early. If you would have told him breakfast is being served, from 6 to 6:30, he would have been up. You had to give him an incentive that speaks to him. That's what the Tiferes Yisrael says. That's how I understand the machloikas of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. That's what he says. Now let me explain to you what he means. It's a very deep argument. And this has to do with the general theme of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai, we know, the Arizal says that when Mashiach comes, the halacha is like Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai is usually stringent, and Beis Hillel is usually lenient. Beis Shammai's neshama, it says in Zohar, comes from Gvura. Beis Hillel's neshama comes from Chesed. Gvura is deeper than Chesed. Gvura is discipline, strength, midas hadin. Gvura means you deserve it. Gvura means you live up to your ultimate potential. Chesed could be blind. It's kind, it's generous, it's forgiving, right? What do we say? Al kol pshayim techasa ava. You turn a blind eye when you love somebody to their sins. Chesed is about kindness and generosity and gracefulness. Beis Hillel is a neshama of chesed. He's much more lenient. Beis Shammai is much more stringent. The word Shammai comes from the word shuma, which means evaluation. Hasham. Hillel comes from the word halo, which is light. In Eov we have an expression, Behiloi neirei al roishi. The word halo, halel, it means light, brightness. Hillel is much more lenient. He's the midah of chesed. Beis Shammai is much more tough, much more challenging. Here is the question. Shabbos comes. What brings what? Does the wine create the kedusha, sayayim, or does the day create the wine? There's two perspectives. There's a neshama. Shabbos comes in. Shabbos. Moichen the Abba. Gilu Ein Soif. Yom Tov comes in Pesach. Kedusha sayayim. That's what's here. It's a day. It's a holy day. Because the day is holy, the food is different. The drinking is different. You drink wine. What do you start off? What's the sibah? The sibah is Kedusha sayayim. That's for the man who's making the money in the marketplace. But his slave, he's not making any money. He doesn't care for your journey. He's not interested. What do you have to tell him? There's a lavish meal. There's a lavish meal. Shabbos, it's going to be such good wine, such delicious wine. Hayayin goyrim lekiddush eteyamer. It's the wine that creates the kiddush. Very often for a person who may not experience the deep spirituality of Shabbos and Yom Tov, you start off with the incentives of the wine. It's the wine. What makes Shabbos beautiful? We sit, the whole family sits, we have a delicious meal, we relax, we sing, we celebrate, we eat the best food in the world, we drink the best drinks in the world, and that allows you to open yourself up to the Kedusha of the day. So Beis Shammai says, what do you have to start with? Kedusha Sayayim. Why? It's the Kedusha that brings the wine. Why are you making a bracha on wine? Why are you celebrating the food? It's the food. That's just the physical manifestation of it. The main thing is the Kedusha. And that's what comes first. Beis Hillel says, not every soul is in that place. Not every soul is sensitive to that. And therefore, sometimes you have to start from the chitzonius and then get into the pnimius. You have to say, no, you know what creates the kedusha? Hayayin goyrim lekiddush etayam. Just like halachically, without wine there's no kiddush. Beis Shammai says, it's the kedusha that makes the wine. It's the holiness that makes the wine. And Beis Hillel says, it's the wine that makes the holiness. Get them through the door. Give them a good meal. Inspire them. Uplift them. Give them things that their body can enjoy. And then from there, you can go a step further and be opened up to holiness and to godliness. That's the shit of Beis Hillel. And halacha, ki Beis Hillel. Sometimes you have to create a vessel before the light comes in. You have to polish the chitzonius in order to welcome the pnimius. Sometimes you got to offer good food at the shir in order to get the crowds.
So it means that when Mashiach will come, the halacha will be like
That's why when Mashiach comes, halacha ki Beis Shammai. Because in a perfect world, an ideal world, the kiddush hayom should come before the yayin. In an imperfect world, we say no. We make a bracha first on the yayin, and that helps us go into the kedusha hayom.
So we'll be all big businessmen making a lot of good deals.
Yes. You'll appreciate the deal, you won't need the breakfast. That's what he says. You'll appreciate the deal, you don't need the breakfast. But I need the breakfast. I'm not interested in that deal. It doesn't speak to me. Shabbos and Yom Tov don't speak to me. What should I tell you? My animal soul reigns. Ooh, there's good food. Okay, Shabbos and Yom Tov speak to me.
Where's that the first Yisrael found?
Masechta Brachas on this Mishnah. Rav Shlomo Yosef Zevin writes in his Sefer Al Torah Moyadim that that's maybe how you can explain. It says by Nadav and Avihu, Shsuye Yayin Nichnasu LeMikdash. They went into the Beis HaMikdash drinking wine. Rav Zevin says, what was the problem? The problem is when they go into the Beis HaMikdash over here on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they should have felt the Kedushas HaMikdash before the Yayin. Shsuye Yayin Nichnasu LeMikdash. They drank, he said the Beis HaMikdash over there should have been Kedushas Hayom first. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the day of the Mishkan. He says they drank before they went in because they wanted,
So when Mashiach comes and builds Beis Hamikdash, Taka will do it to Beis Shammai, so that would be...
In other words, the reason Chazal wanted a Jew to drink wine is to be able to, it should bring to Kedusha. The point is you're going to the Beis HaMikdash. But when you're going into the Beis HaMikdash, you don't need the wine. It's Moichen de Abba, it's not Moichen de Imma. Yayin is Moichen de Imma. The Lashon Achsidus in Lekut Torah, in the Maimon we're learning Lahavin Mashakasav B'Haggadah, Parshas Tzav, Yayin is Moichen de Imma. Wine is Bina, right? Eim Habonim Smecha. Yayin Yesamach, it's Simcha. Bina is Yesh. Mayim is Chachma. That's why Mayim has no taste. Hashoysa Mayim Litzmai. Mayim is Chachma, Moichen de Abba. Shsuye Yayin Nichnas Ulamikdash. When you go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you don't come in with Bina, you have to come in with Chachma. You don't come in with Yesh, you come in with Ayin. That was the mistake of Nadav and Avihu. So that's the argument in Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and that's why halacha ki Beis Hillel. And now we understand al pi pnimius why the baskel doesn't work for this, because the baskel is basically a message from heaven. In heaven, kedusha comes before wine. On earth, wine comes before kiddush. So that's why this is not something that relates to the baskel. Usually, the baskel says halacha ki Beis Hillel, but this is something that had to be nischadish on earth. Because in heaven, of course, you see the Kedusha before the wine. Shabbos, it's a different day. Shabbos. Yom Tov is a different day. It's a whole different energy in the world. Well, you need the wine? You don't need the wine for it. The wine is just a little facilitator. But from an earthly level, right, you'll ask people, what do you enjoy about Shabbos, right? Most people will tell you, family sits together, no cell phones, no business. I get to sleep, I get to talk, we get to shmooze, great food. There's a reason for it. Yeah? And it creates something special. And from the Gashmi, you can go to the Ruchni. You know, when people are more relaxed and there's better food and better drinks, there's a more greater simcha, there's more serenity in the home. So from the Gashmi, you go to the Ruchni and you don't have to delegitimize it. Fakert, we say halach is like Beis Hillel. Geschmack of art, huh? Very geschmack of art.
And maybe the whole,
because now it makes sense, because like they're arguing, they both agree to what the other one says. So why are you stop arguing? He says, no, the Sibba is the Kedushas Hayom. And he says, no, the Kedushas Hayom comes first, but without Yain, there's no Kiddush. Beis Hillel didn't, Beis Shammai didn't know that. He also knows. But everyone, but the truth is, there's an Akudah for Beis Shammai. The Sibba is Kedusha, and the Mesuvav is wine. And for Beis Hillel, the Sibba is wine, and the Mesuvav is Kedusha. He's addressing a lower state of reality, which is Midas HaChesed. It's not Midas HaDin. He's not demanding the highest, strictest standard of purity. He's diluting it.
It's interesting that the Chachomim say that the Kodesh Baruch Hu means that they were nitzchis. So it means they were victorious because they know that there is no Beis HaMikdash. Don't tell us what
very good.
When a Beis HaMikdash will bring Beis HaMikdash
very
back,
good.
Then we'll be
very good.
That's what's called
very good, yeah.
So this was very challenging because it wasn't just a baskol, but he did the carob tree, the river. He did
Oh yeah,
on the
you're right.
also he did some
It was a lot of miracles to
even
do.
with that.
I saw one of the Mefarshim says a beautiful word about that Gemara. He says, how could they ignore all these miracles and everything? They said a beautiful word that the Chachamim knew this was the beginning of Galus. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Elazar Haggadah was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva would witness the Bar Kochva revolt, which was crushed, and all the hopes for building the Beis HaMikdash at that time were gone at that point. Rabbi Akiva thought Bar Kochva was Mashiach. This is like 60 years after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. Yeah, and they were going in for a long journey into exile. And what would be able to give the Jewish people the perseverance not to assimilate, not to give up their identity? At that moment, they saw miracles. And Rabbi Yeshua said, we don't get nispal from the world changing. We have a pasuk in Torah, and nothing will change that. So madach, real miracles, they would not get affected by. It created a certain precedent to teach the Jewish people that they should remain unwavering and steadfast and committed to Torah and mitzvahs through thick and thin. Because this is going to be forever. This is going to be eternal. Empires will come and go. Edicts will come and go. Civilizations will come and go. Religions will come and go. Fads will come and go. Cultures will come and go. But HaTorah Hazois, He nitzchis, nitzchuni bonai. This will remain eternal. And with it, you will survive and you will thrive for eternity. So really, the Chazal were creating a precedent that nothing in the world, even the greatest miracles, can interfere and challenge the authenticity of Torah, which will remain forever. And look, literally thousands of years later, 1900 years later, right? We're sitting here in New York in America and telling the story of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, the carob tree, the oven, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. It's really a testimony to the vision of that moment. We shouldn't take that for granted. A lot of sweat, blood, and tears had to be poured in order for the Jewish people to be able to maintain all of this and emerge on the other side triumphantly. So this is big. It's very big. The fact that we could sit here and speak about Rabbi Eliezer as though he was our next door neighbor and lived just a few years ago is not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing. The Third Reich was supposed to last 1,000 years. It lasted 12 years. The paradise of communism was supposed to usher in the messianic utopia of Trotsky, Lenin, and Stalin. It lasted for 70 years. The pharaohs were very powerful. The Roman Empire was very powerful. It lasted a few hundred years. But our shtickle Gemara is still here a few thousand years later. Okay, see you tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. We're going to learn Likkutei Torah 7:30 and Gemara 8:30.
I know that Jacobson's mentioned it many times, but sometimes people have the feeling that when there's a machlokes, the one is saying that the other one's wrong, or they're saying, but it's not like that. They're not.
Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. It's the words of the living God. Beis Shammai is the words of the living God, and Beis Hillel is the words of the living God. Halacha follows one path because I can't live in a world of quantum mechanics. But in the world of quantum mechanics, right, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are both happening simultaneously. It's both certainties. In the concrete world, I can either light one candle or 8 candles, right? This vart with Kiddush and wine, there's a letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe to a student of the Chafetz Chaim in Vancouver, and he writes to him that Beis Shammai holds that you always have to get rid of the bad before you bring in the good. Sur meirava seita. First you clean up the mess, and then you bring in the furniture. First you gut the house, and then you build a nice foundation. That's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says if you wait for that, you may be cleaning up the mess forever. You got to bring in the good, even when there's still ra. Again, Beis Shammai is gvura. Beis Hillel is chesed. He says you see that by Chanukah. Beis Shammai says, before you get rid of the bad, you can't bring in any good. So the first night of Hanukkah, when you still didn't start the work, you got to come with all the bulldozers. You got to come with all the F-16s. You got to come with all the grenades. You got to come with all the power. You got to come with 8 candles. You need so much light because you have to defeat the whole darkness. You come out in a full war. The second night, it's already a little easier because there's less toxicity, so you could come with 7. And the third night, it's already easier. And then the last night, there's only very little darkness left, so you could come with 1 candle. That's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says, we don't have the koyach for that. He says, you can't get rid of all your darkness and toxicity. You might end up in therapy for 60 years and you'll end up with nothing. You got to bring in light. The first thing is you got to bring in oil. You got to bring in, but you can't. There's so much darkness. Bring 1 candle. Bring 1 candle. And you know what? The 1 candle will dispel the darkness. So tomorrow you'll be able to bring in 2 candles. And then the last night you'll bring 8 candles. So it's this very similar process. Do you start with the Kiddush? Or do you start with the Yayin, you know? You can't always, Beis Hillel says, you can't always start with the full idealistic.
They say they got a picture now of the black hole.
I saw.
Most of the dark, the light.
I saw.
There is such a thing.
I saw the picture.
The Gehenna, the meaning of
The picture is 55 million light years away. That's the Ikke Chiddush.
They was taken
And
from
the
7 parts of
telescope,
the world.
it's a virtual telescope, which is like the size of the Earth.
Size of the Earth. The telescope was the size of the Earth.
It's taken from few parts in the world.
8. They had 8 telescopes, I think. And I saw that they wrote to be able to see the black hole would be like the ability to see a bagel on the moon. Imagine to be able to see a bagel on the moon. Imagine.
That's the magnitude.
What's the meaning of a black hole? Is that like the Gehenna?
No, verkehrt.
Everything starts?
Black hole is one of the best mishalim for chassidus. Tzimtzum. Black holes, it's not for now. you can get sucked into a black hole for a few days or a few light years. It's not frightening.
That's what holds us all together.
Without it, the
Nothing can
universe
come
would not
out
exist.
and nothing can go. It's like
You can't escape a black hole. The gravity is
it does have emit some kind of energy. Say,
it's the first time they made a picture. They have a picture of it,
First
right?
time of a picture and it's full of light there.
I saw around
It's
it.
like a crown of light.
Amazing.
It's very amazing to me also.
Yeah.
You made the point about black holes a lot, that they're dark because they contain so much light.
So much light. The great darkness. It's like what we're speaking about, Moich and the Abba, is really a mashal of a black hole. It's ayin. You look at it, it's black. There's nothing there. You can't see anything. You say, oh, it's just black. Really, there's too much light.
Everything is it.
When you
The-
pierce
the-
through-
it has everything. So it's ayin.
You use the analogy of saying you go through your fear and there's a God's waiting for you with a great light.
Yeah.
But you have to pierce the darkness.
You have to pierce it, yeah.
Is the metaphor I think you
Yeah. Right. It's a fascinating concept. The chiddush is that Einstein speculated that it exists in his general theory of relativity, and he said himself that he didn't think it really exists, but mathematically it had to work on some level,
Mathematically, he knew there was something there
which has to work that way. So he understood it mathematically. There was a part of him that said it can't be real in a reality, but mathematically it's some mathematical truth. Then over the decades, they ascertained the truth, but they never saw it. It was based on symptoms and the way of explaining things. And now they say it's mamash the first picture they have of it. 55 million light years, right? 55 million.
find a virtual telescope the size of the
It's basically not from one physical space they looked at it. They combined multiple sources to be able to construct
Well,
such
what
a
do you
picture.
mean-
So
what
it's
do
a virtual picture.
What do you mean the size? What's the size of the virtual
The virtual telescope, in a way, if you think about it, you look into the telescope, it would literally be, like, you have a lens and stuff like that to look at something. Literally, it's like the size of the Earth in order to penetrate, in order to see that bagel
for it to reach
on the
that
moon.
far, yeah.
Yes.
But the actual telescopes themselves, the Matthias of the you're saying that the quantum effect of the telescopes is a virtual telescope the size of the Earth.
Yeah.
You don't, it's not really the size of the Earth.
Oh, yeah,
It's
of
the
course.
magnification of the object that many times.
The telescopes they had to use in order to be able to see it had to magnify the object that they want to observe, that it should be like the size of the
It's
Earth.
the quantum effect of all those. that
Right. So
are
when they had the 8 telescopes together, they could magnify that object, in this case the black hole,
Those 8 telescopes,
that it should be the size of the Earth. And that's why they could see something. 8 telescopes.
where were they located?
All over the world, yeah. South Korea,
So they were
India.
They were in the same hemisphere though, or different hemispheres?
Well, they have.
They had to be focused. They needed perfect weather in all the locations. So it was a mamash
Thanks, America.
tough of a fellow.
Hashem is just watching all this and laughing because Hashem's creation is really beyond our hasaga.
No, I don't think he's laughing. No, he's laughing. On the contrary.
No, I mean, at the people that are trying to.
Opposite. I mean, if we would not do it, he would be probably.
It's bringing the pieces of the puzzle together, where science and spirituality are going to become one. That's what's happening.
They are misogyn that have been talked about years ago. Like the black hole itself, the yes,
Tzimtzum.